Start. Good afternoon. It's Friday, January 15th. This is the Friday of the first week of the legislative session. The legislators are now out on the highway, headed home to your communities, and this is my first weekly update. Let's talk about the bills that we're going to bring this session. The first one, of course, is the biggest. It was the biggest last year, which is the Revised Model Act for Nonprofit Corporations. And last year there was, frankly, legislators and lobbyists were intimidated by the length of the bill. It was 163 pages long, and they didn't have time to read it, and they didn't have time to understand it, and everybody got nervous. So in consultation with Speaker Gosh and Mike Stevens, lawyer legislator from Yankton, we decided to hold off for a year. That also, and we did the seminars in September, so that we invited nonprofits, legislators to attend at no charge, so they could become better acquainted and less intimidated by the bill. The bill turned out to be 170 pages because, given the extra year, there's a couple tweaking things that the Business Law Committee did. Specifically the subcommittee chaired by Bobby Thury from Sioux Falls. One, this is a little different because we will allow LLCs to become a nonprofit, and we think that's a real advantage. We all know that LLCs are much easier to manage from the paperwork standpoint and so forth. Additionally, similar to how South Dakota has now become a great place for foreign trusts to relocate to South Dakota. Likewise, we added a few pages at the end of the bill, which will facilitate out-of-state nonprofits or foreign nonprofits to relocate with a presence here in South Dakota and bring their nonprofit business to our state. That's a House bill. I don't have a number yet because it was just jacketed this afternoon. In fact, that goes for all our bills. I had LRC draft them in the fall. We then, under the procedure, we get sponsors' signatures, and those bills were just jacketed this afternoon, and they'll be given their first reading and introduction on Tuesday of next week. In addition to the nonprofit bill, there's a bill from the family law section that says if the parents of a minor child all agree, and if the court agrees that it's in the best interest of the child, you can conduct a name change without publishing in the newspaper. The Family Law Committee also brought a bill. These all went through the annual meeting, by the way, and were approved by the membership, that would provide that if the primary custodial parent of a minor child is relocating, if there's an existing protection order, they don't have to advise where they are moving to. However, in order to clarify and ensure that non-custodial parents still have visitation rights, if a circuit judge enters a specific custody visitation order that would supersede the general rule about when there's a protective order in place, keeping the residents secret when they change. So that's a clarification from the family law. Garnishment. I think it's been since, as I looked at that chapter under garnishment, it seems to me that there's been very little revision since 1939, which even predates me. But we all know as lawyers that the U.S. Supreme Court struck down prejudgment garnishment, and our statutes dealing with garnishment are just full of all the prejudgment garnishment process. So this bill is repealing all those unconstitutional and outdated or statutes. One other small tweak, and I think it's going to be helpful. When the sheriff can't get service and the person won't sign for certified mail, the proposal from the debtor-creditor committee was to permit service of process through registered mail. And we think that may go a long way to resolve the issues. Additionally, given the recent voter-initiated increase in minimum wage, we're throwing the statute in that talks about the federal protected amount or the minimum wage, whichever's higher. We are bringing a severed mineral rights bill. There was in 2012, the legislature appointed an interim study committee to look at severed minerals. I think one of the things that was prompting that was, of course, what was going on in North Dakota with oil exploration and development, and they thought we needed to clean up our statutes. In the process, however, they modeled it after North Dakota law, but there must be something different. I'm not licensed up there, but they kept repeatedly using the phrase filing. The owner of the severed minerals has to file. The owner of the surface right the surface rights owner has to do filing in order to try to merge the two. But anybody who does real property in South Dakota knows we're not doing filings, we're doing recordations. We record against specific property. And so this is an attempt to come in 3 years after the 2013 legislative session and try to clean up the problems that were created. We frankly didn't catch that, and by the time our Natural Resources Committee caught up to it, it had already passed the House and Senate unanimously, and so that horse race had already started. So we're going to go back in this year and try to fix that. There was a task force created this last year by legislative action that created an elder abuse task force to examine and see where we could strengthen South Dakota laws to protect our elderly from exploitation, abuse, and so forth. We had several members of our bar that participated in that task force. Well, at Senate Bill 54, specifically Section 38, you'll find a provision that says, and the state bar shall prepare a curriculum for guardians and conservators that they must take and they must complete, and they must do so within 4 months of their appointment. We assume that there'll be some sort of form that they'll have to file with the circuit judge. We're going to do that. I've got the Real Property Trust probate section working on the materials. We'll have written materials. We will have a video that they can watch at our website and download the certificate of completion. The bar commissioners just approximately an hour ago voted to support the bill, and I can advise the legislators that we will do this as a public service and a service to help protect our elderly. The last thing I'll mention is that last year we brought a bill to put a cap on the charges that that healthcare providers make when we need copies of medical records. We ran into overwhelming opposition that we simply couldn't beat them. They had 26 lobbyists on the floor of the House when that bill was going to be heard that day. Nevertheless, there's been some general discussions over the last month or so, and we're going to have a meeting next Tuesday where we're going to try to get all the players, trial lawyers in the state bar, the hospitals, SIDOHU, and others, and see if there's some sort of agreement that we could reach so that we don't have to do the fight, but we also are consistent and we are fair to the patients and their lawyers. So stay tuned. I'll be back next Friday with the next update. Have a good weekend.